Khumalo, Pastor Sibusiso Khumalo. He is the newly elected youth director for the World Church. He'll be here in a few moments. Before then, the regular press briefing. I want to say hi to those that are watching online. It turns out this is, to have daily live press conferences online has been rather successful, as people have been able to tap into the insights of our guests and have a summary of the day. We are still very surprised by the number of people that are interested in watching, and I want to thank you for watching this from home. But I want to thank, of course, the journalists that are here, the communication professionals that are here, that turn up with your best questions day in and day out. You're the ones that bring the best insights out of our guests, and I want to thank you for that, both internal and external media who are here. Today was a busy day on the floor and in the nominating committee. And it's even difficult to summarize because summaries become in themselves long documents. But I'm going to go through, I'm not going to read all the names today. There are almost 40, 50 names. It's quite special. But we'll start by talking about the Constitution and bylaws. It returned with changes. You remember yesterday and the day before there were some items that were sent back to the committee to be studied and to be analyzed and brought back to the floor again. And they heard the delegates, made the necessary changes. One item was withdrawn and all items therefore carried. So this shows the resilience of the process. The document was brought, the changes were brought, the delegates discussed it, sent it back to committee. The committee reflected those changes and then brought it back to the floor and it was approved. So you see this democratic process, which is not trivial to do with over 2,000 delegates being able to participate in this. Then you had church manual agenda completed today. 6 were sent back and all the other items were carried. And it was clear today that the delegates cared about confidentiality and data protection in the local and the broader church community. This came up several times on the floor. Offerings as a test is a recurring issue that came back today again. And also delegates also care about abuse. Item 407 is the first time that was mentioned, but it wasn't the only one. We also have General Conference Corporation members meeting occurred and purpose was explained. It's interesting that there is a resistance to this. We've perceived online and through letters that were sent to us, a resistance to the General Conference Corporation meeting happening during General Conference session. This has been happening since 1904 when the General Conference Corporation was established. And as far as our historians could tell, this was never a problem until this year, where some members and some delegates were wondering why or questioning why we have a corporate meeting in the middle of a church event. This surprised us in many ways. And today this is why we had the long explanation as to why we have corporation meetings. And the reason is very simple. The corporation is the legal entity that holds the assets, the properties, and does the legal management of the church. And this is why in the Constitution we have a meeting during General Conference session where we discuss items related to the corporation. Nominating committee reports. We've had many of them today, division secretaries and treasurers. We also had department directors and corporation directors. And the list of nominees and now elected officials for our divisions is long, and I will not read all of the names. And for the directors of the General Conference, and I don't want to single out any given division, so just check online, Adventist.news, you'll find the profile, you will find more information about each of the officials that were elected for our divisions. And the nominating committee report number 9 came with the directors at the General Conference. So I'm going to read through those names. Ivan Omana, Chaplaincy Ministries Director. Orothai Cherison, she is the Children's Ministries Director. Alyssa Truman, Communication Director. This is very special for us within the communication sphere. Congratulations to Alyssa on this election. Lisa Beardsley Hardy, Education Director. Willie Oliver, Family Ministries Director. Zeno Charles Marcel, Health Ministries Director. Ramon Canals, Ministerial Secretary. So this is some confusion that is usually made with the Ministerial Association. It is you don't have a Ministerial Director. This is the person and the team that leads the care and the care of our pastors. It is a association that is focused on our pastors globally. We have tens of thousands of pastors globally, and the leader of the Ministerial Association is the president of the General Conference. And now, in order to effect the ministry in the day-to-day, you have a secretary of the Ministerial Association who is just elected, Ramon Canals. So hopefully you see the nuance between the difference in that. The leader of our pastors is the president, and the secretary, we call him Ministerial Secretary, he leads the magazines that we have to our pastors and our elders, Ministry Magazine and others. So next, Nelu Bursia, Parl Director, Public Affairs and Religious Liberty. Hector Reyes, Planned Giving and Trust Services Director. Mario Martinelli, Publishing Ministries Director. James Howard, Sabbath School and Personal Ministries. Marcus Bonfim, Stewardship Ministries. Galina Stell, Women's Ministries Director. And Sibusiso Khumalo, also known as Busi Khumalo, who will be joining us now. So this is the summary of today. Much more could have been said, but this is just a short briefing. So without further ado, Pastor Busi Khumalo, please join me here to answer some questions from these wonderful journalists and communicators who will ask you all about youth ministries today. Please come and join me on this side so we have a better angle on the camera. So here you have representatives of internal media, external media. They are wonderful communicators, and they've been asking some phenomenal questions over the last few days, and we ask you to come and ask questions today. If the questions are related to the process or anything else, apart from youth ministries, I will try to answer it, but they want to hear from you. Please, if you have your questions, come to the mic and ask them. Who would like to go first? I don't know if this is a good sign or a bad sign. We'll see. Yeah.
Hugh Davis, Mid-America Union. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Can you share with us a little bit of what are some of the goals that you are looking for to continuing into this next quinquennium?
Thank you so much for asking that question. Youth ministries is, I would like to refer to it as a well-oiled machine. We have already curriculums, programs, and resources that I found in the department. But in the last 3 years, I've had the opportunity of looking at all that is available at the GC, and it has helped me to formulate my vision for the department. So in the next quinquennium, which we will be starting soon, what I plan to do, by God's grace, working with the team that God will assign to work with me, is to ensure that we involve young people in the mission of the church. We cannot afford to do business as usual, because we know that the devil is fighting our young people. The devil is busy ravaging the lives of our young people. So we need to really come up with a strategy that will ensure that the back door is closed. The retention issue is one of the things that keeps us awake at night. We are struggling to retain young people, especially the senior youth from 16 years and above. Those who are junior youth, it's not difficult to keep them in the church because we have the Adventurer Club and the Pathfinder Club, and those programs are keeping children in the church. But as you grow older, as they grow older, They make their own decisions, they formulate their own worldviews, and some of them decide to leave the church. So the vision that I have, working with a team that God will put in my within my sphere of influence to work with, is to ensure that we involve young people and we concentrate particularly on the senior youth, those who are 16 years and above.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Heidi Baumgartner. I'm from the North Pacific Union, where we have the Gleaner magazine. One of the things that we've been wrestling with is how to move away from event-based youth ministries and focus more on local youth ministries. I'd like to hear your insights on how to balance that.
I like that question. I always say to youth leaders around the world, wherever I go, I say youth ministries, there's so many activities. We have camps, we have uniforms, we do marching and drilling, we have honors, we do pin trading, we have all sorts of things. And by the way, the youth department has, many handbooks, many resources. And very often what I've noticed is that we are tempted as youth leaders to think that what we are doing is the main thing. And I always say to young people and to their leaders, please remember that these are just conduits. They are leading us somewhere. The main goal, our mission statement says, to lead young people into a saving relationship with Jesus and help them embrace his call to disciple making and mission involvement. So all these other things are peripheral issues. The main goal is to lead them to Jesus and for them to have an authentic relationship with Jesus. And so while we have these things and we enjoy them, but they're not the main thing. The main thing is to have them have a connection with Jesus and to be involved in total youth involvement.
Good evening. My name is Andrew Francis. I'm with Spectrum Magazine. Michael, I have two questions here. It's connected. In your opinion, why do you think that youth, especially senior youth, you specifically mentioned as an issue to look at, why do you think that youth have been disconnected from the church and its mission? And the second question I have is, how do you specifically envision youth participation in our mission and when it comes to our churches and institutions?
Can you reiterate the second question?
How do you specifically envision youth participation in the mission when it comes to our churches and institutions?
Okay. The first question is very, very important. What is important is that when you look at the statistics, particularly the research that was done by Dr. David Trim at the General Conference, the outcomes of that study are very interesting. The study says young people don't leave the church because they do not love our doctrines, they are in disagreement with our teachings. And what has come out of that study is that they leave the church because they feel that there is no sense of connection. They are not welcome. They are not loved. They feel that there is that distance between them and those who are older in the church. And the leadership of the church does not give them that opportunity to feel warm and loved. So that's the main thing that came out of that study. And that was interesting. It's not the doctrines, they believe in our doctrines, they believe in the spirit of prophecy, most of them do. I'm not saying all of them do, but mainly they feel that the church is not embracing them, there is no love. And how do we envision correcting that and making sure that, they have a sense of ownership of the church? I think we need to help them. Now, I'm a believer and a proponent of helping our young people know their spiritual gifts. If they don't know who they are, if they don't know their identity, if they don't know that God has gifted them with talents and spiritual gifts, how will they serve in the church? And so we have a very powerful resource in our website about spiritual gifts that helps young people to know their spiritual gifts. That way they'll be able to find their niche in God's mission and be able to fly and do their best. Now, many times we have given young people a formula that is, supposed to be applied by everyone. We think that all young people should do public evangelism. No, there's personal evangelism, there's friendship evangelism, and many other kinds of evangelism strategies, music and other things. So we are encouraging our young people to use their God-given talents and spiritual gifts to engage in the mission of the church. So that's how we see ourselves encouraging them to be involved in mission.
Just for clarification, you mentioned a resource on the website that
Yeah,
was used. Can you specify which one?
Okay, www.gcyouthministries.org. That's our
You
website.
said there's a resource on the website. I'm wondering which resource
Youth
on the
mi-
website.
the youth department.
So you're talking about the whole website as the
Spiritual gifts, right?
Yeah, the spiritual gifts.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Bjorn Carlman, Adventist Today, and I have a question for each of you. So starting on the youth side of things, I'm very curious. You mentioned reasons that young people are leaving the church, and obviously we're all concerned about that. Do they tend to be uniform, or is it very different across the world? And if you could speak to that and kind of give us some of the reasons that if it varies, or if you're seeing big patterns, basically.
Yeah, what I've already stated seems to be a pattern around the world. That they feel that there is a sense of disconnection. There's no, yeah. Of course, there are other reasons. Some of them, fall by the wayside, apostasy, moral issues and all that. But the main thing seems to be that one that I've already cited.
So, no matter the geography, the location, it's disconnection. It's
correct.
Interesting. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. And another question for Sam, and I realize this is kind of putting you on the spot, but do you know how much we spend on a GC session, like ballpark figure? What does it cost to put one on?
It's a very complex, I don't know the figure. And
I know it's complex.
It's a very complex way to put it together because the divisions sponsor their own delegates coming here. Then you have the stage, you have the labor unions, you have the renting of the place itself is usually given by the city or at a heavily discounted price. But no, I don't have the figure of how much a GC session cost.
Does anyone? Could you get it? Like, is there a way to?
I could try and secure that figure in general terms, but I presume you're interested in the operation itself.
Yeah, I mean, I was trying to research it, and I realized, that we got the facility basically for free, right? But obviously there's so much else to consider as well. But I'd be really interested.
Yeah. I know that most of the expenses in the AV infrastructure that takes a good chunk of the budget.
Sure. Travel.
And because it's for 10 days, it's very difficult to do it. Then you have the transport of the equipment, materials. Just from the GC, we had 13 trucks that came from that arrived with equipment, such as the equipment that you see here that sets up the studio, and all the other equipment that we need in the stands, in the exhibit halls, and everywhere else. So we also have help from the North American division when it comes to the operation of the screens and others. So it really is just building all that up, and it's millions.
Sure.
I don't know how many, but I'll try and find out for you and bring that information.
Thank you. Yeah, it's just, I know it's very complex, and I don't know who would have the figure, but people ask. So yeah, thank you.
Hi, Liz Kirkland, Communication Director of Rocky Mountain Conference. So at the conference level, we've had a lot of confusion with young adults being lumped in with youth. A lot of attention gets played on the early childhood and the club ministries, so oftentimes young adult gets completely ignored at the lower levels. And today, one of the delegates brought up the conversation of separating young adult into their own categories, so the 22 to 30-year-old. So what are your thoughts about taking these young adults out of the youth program?
That's an interesting question. I was there. I listened to that comment. Very interesting. First of all, I would like you to be familiar with our structure in the department. We have 5 ministries in the youth department. We have the Adventurer Club, and those are children ages 4 to 9, Pathfinders ages 10 to 15, Ambassadors ages 16 to 21, Young Adults ages 22 to 30, and then Public Campus Ministry ages 16 to 30 plus. So that is what we call youth ministries. Divisions, now remember, we have 13 divisions and 4 attached fields. Divisions do not have to follow the structure that we have. I will make an example. The North American division, They don't have a similar structure like what we have. What they regard as young adults is somewhat different. Even the ages that they have, the age bracket, is somewhat larger than what we have. We have said to the divisions, you take what we have and contextualize it, and that's what being a global church is all about. You don't have to take it as it is. And we have a youth advisory comprising of all the 13 divisions and 4 attached fields. And we debate about these things. We have a robust conversation about these things. And eventually people decide, the divisions decide, and when they go back and have their own advisories, they decide how to reconfigure what we have at the GC. And so, as things stand now, this is our structure at the GC, but we are giving liberty. We don't dictate to the divisions how they must structure their own ministry. So basically, that's my answer.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Hello, Alva James Johnson. Congrats on
Thank you.
being reelected. I teach at one of our universities. I also have 2 young adult daughters. And there is a sense of a lack of community when they leave our university settings.
Yeah.
You mentioned that a lack of connectedness
Yeah.
seems to be the primary reason. But then you were saying that you thought helping them to discover their spiritual gifts. I'm not sure I see the connection between that. I mean, what do we do to make them feel connected to the church?
Yeah.
And how do they find community?
Yes. Thank you. Once you know who you are, you find your niche, you find your space in the church, and you get involved. Because the reason why they feel that there is no connection, yes, number one, as adults, as leaders, we don't embrace them. That's one thing that drives them away. But there's another factor. When they don't know who they are and what they're capable of doing, they distance themselves. But once they know who they are and what God has gifted them with, they'll be able to say, wow, I have a space in the church. I have a contribution to make in the church. That brings connection as well. So we have a role as leaders and as members to embrace them, love them, whether they know their gifts or not. But they also need to know who they are. And that way they'll connect with the church. So this thing is twofold. I'm not saying it's a one-size-fits-all, but we have found that that is the main thing. Loving them, embracing them, loving them unconditionally, and them getting to know who they are, their identity, and finding a space where they can fit and do God's work. Those things work. We've seen that happening. Young people who are active in the church, they don't leave the church. They stay in the church. And young people who are affirmed because we can see what they're gifted with, they stay in the church.
I see no one behind me, so I have one more question. Singles ministry. This is a real problem in the church, especially for single women. I think there was a recent study that came out that said that for the first time in U.S. history, for example, more young women are leaving the church than young men.
Yeah.
And I'm hearing from a lot of women, young women in the church who are single, having difficulty finding mates in the church.
Yeah.
And being in the church, it seems very much it caters more to families.
Yeah.
How do we make space for single people? How do we make single women feel of value in the church, and you don't have to be married to be of value? How do we get that message across? Because they're beginning to leave. They're beginning to look elsewhere for mates. It's a real problem, and we don't talk a lot about it. So I'm just wondering if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah. When I came to the GC, I sat down with my team in the department. I said, listen, the youth department does not have all the answers. We need to collaborate with other ministries. And so we have formed partnerships with family ministries. We all belong to the family. And family ministries are specialists when it comes to family. And they have resources that are geared for single people, single young people. Over and above that, we have just revised a resource, an old resource that was published in 2005, if I'm not mistaken, during the time of Dr. Baraka Muganda, if you remember him. It was outdated. So when I came into the department, I said, you know what, we need to revise this book. We reviewed it and revised it. We got, experts to help us revise the book. Ministerial department and other people we work with, they looked at the book. And one of the segments of the book is about that. We have a section in the book about how to take care of those who are single in the church. Because we do recognize that there are many young people who are 30 years old, some of them are over 30 years. Of course, if they are over 30 years, they are no longer in our domain, but we still care for them. So we have, decided, and intentionally so, to have a section in that book about single young people, especially those who cannot find partners.
I have one other question. A lot of this that happens at the higher levels of the church, it doesn't seem to trickle down to the local church.
True.
I mean, all of what you're saying sounds great, and it's going to be in a book, etc. But how do we trickle it down to the local church?
I'll address this one. The General Conference, contrary to most people's beliefs, cannot command anybody. We cannot coerce anybody. We find it even difficult to convince anybody. The only tool we have is to inspire. All of these departments, if we fail to inspire, we fail. And I learned this lesson with the visual identity of the Adventist Church. In any given headquarters by any global corporation, the central head office of communication determines this is what you need to do with the brand, and in very quick order, the entire world rebrands accordingly. My expectations of that happening quickly dissipated. I was leading the project, but if we fail to inspire the divisions, the unions, the conferences, and the local churches to use the same visual identity, we failed. There was no other recourse. And youth ministries is in the same boat, and everyone else is in the same boat. And another element that comes that I've learned, and I'd like to share in this regard, I believe the Adventist Church is held together by a travel budget. When I came to the General Conference, I used to post the countries that I would travel. I no longer do that anymore. Because a lot of people see this and they think, look at that, officers of the General Conference traveling the world on our tithe. And there are many elements, many online attacks based on this. Let me promise you, after 6 months of traveling economy, which we can only travel economy, 16 hours for the first flight plus another 15 for the second flight, I remember those journeys intimately. Sometimes you're there more flying than the time that you spend in the place where you go. It's not fun. And yes, 50 plus countries that I've traveled, and we amass quite a bit. You go from the airport to the hotel where the convention center is, maybe you visit the administrative building, and then there is no more time, you have to get on a plane and go to the next country where you go. But we eat with people. We talk with them. We get to know their families, our counterparts. I'm sure Busi could tell you stories of visiting youth ministries leaders and praying for them in their struggles and helping to navigate the church, and most importantly, learning from them. The Adventist Church is held together by our travel budget. The Holy Spirit brings us together. The local church pastor has a budget to visit in this district or her district. A conference has a travel budget to visit within that territory. A union the same, to keep people together. So things don't reach the local level because at some layer they believe there is a better way to fulfill the same objectives, which is what Pastor Busi mentioned. Look, if the division wants to structure differently, it's their prerogative. They know their people better. Have at it. Now, of course, we need cohesion, and we can't have such fragmentation that there is no unity that comes from it. So that's on one extreme. On the other hand, we can't have uniformity either. We're not McDonald's, right? Even McDonald's has a lot of diversity if you travel to different places. So this is a struggle for all the departments, and I've been processing this for years. So I want to thank you for your question and the opportunity you gave me to address those issues.
Can I just add
Please.
to that? I've noticed I'm an Adventist for many years now. I don't know any other denomination. And I've noticed that the greatest challenge that we have in our church is communication.
Tell us about it.
Even at the local church, leave the general conference, leave all the other
100%.
structures. I'm talking about the local church. To get reports from the local church to the conference it's a mammoth task. We are struggling to get reports from the divisions.
I hear Heidi here going, I testify. Everybody testify. There are wonderful stories happening, and
Yes.
you're begging them so you can publish them online, and you don't hear about
So,
it. Yes.
so now you come to the point where you are expecting people to embrace our resources and implement them. It's a challenge. We are used to working in silos, and that's why I said earlier, when I came to the GC, I said collaboration is the key. We don't have all the answers. Over the years, we thought that each department has all the answers. No, we don't. It's arrogance to think like that. We need each other. In Africa, we say it takes a child to raise a village. We need,
Takes a village to
village
raise
or
a
rather,
child.
did I do it say different? I mean, the other way around.
Yeah.
It takes the village to raise a child. So we need each other. You have your own resources as a department in communication, in youth ministries. Our interest is to equip this child holistically. I get calls. In the department, we're inundated with emails. Pastor, we are seeing wonderful things on your website. How come our division is not implementing this? How come we don't know about this? We don't know there's an ambassador club. Our 16-year-olds are languishing. They don't know where to go after graduating from Pathfinders. Well, we lack words to explain.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And before we have an article with GC saying the travel budget keeps the church together, let me explain. The Holy Spirit keeps the church together. I hope that was pretty clear. But you never know
Too late.
what kind of shorts and reels will come from this. It's probably already there. Yes, please.
Thank you. Good evening. I am Alejandro Varela from Sun TV. This is a question in relation to a topic that was brought up yesterday for you, for
Sure.
Sam. Pastor Richard McEdward emphasized the importance of digital media as a tool for evangelism, for advancing the mission of the church. My question is, how do you perceive the role of self-supporting ministries in the evangelistic goals of the church? And in your opinion, are there any adjustments that self-supporting media ministries should consider to improve their support to the church and align more effectively with the message of unity that the new leadership is encouraging?
Excellent
Thank you.
question.
Thank you.
So let's first, I'll try and do it in 2-3 minutes so that we can get through and not finish so late like we did yesterday. The new digital landscape offers a big challenge for our structure because every media before digital was geographically bound. So if you had a print magazine, you either distribute in this territory or you don't. If you had radio, you either broadcast to this region or you don't. It was geographically bound. If you wanted to say something to these people, you could use the radio. Same with television, geographically bound. And then digital comes, and it's no longer geographically bound. Now a local church can now talk to the entire world. And this proves very difficult because if somebody in Minnesota is going to search for the Adventist church, they're not going to find their local church first. They're likely going to find Adventist.org first. Why? Because the reputation management of websites by search engines, and AI is exactly the same, takes into account how many links are pointing back to that given resource, and the optimization of that website for search engines guarantees that that website is first. So a few years ago, when we had evangelists come to us and say, we're giving Bible studies to people, as soon as they search on Google for the Adventist church, they give up on baptism. Why? Because they were finding things that were very odd. And back in the day, you just put a blog together, you say whatever you like, truthful or not, and people read and they get... How do we present the truth on the first page of Google? So after a long time of effort, we now have Adventist.org for branded search terms being on the first page for every branded search term. What does that mean? It means that we need now to think through how the General Conference interacts through the divisions with each territory. So for the North American division, we have a memorandum of understanding in place and a partnership and a committee structure, a governance structure that works on Adventist.org collectively, together with the General Conference. because within this territory, when people search for the Adventist Church, they find Adventist.org. So if you go just in North America, there will be an option for you to have prayer. That option is not offered anywhere else because North America has an infrastructure to receive those contacts through Adventist Connect Ministries, so that we can pray for people. But that's within here. Now we are expanding that to other divisions so that they can join and help to shape that. This is the centralized nature of digital outreach. Now let's talk about the importance of fragmentation. We need to have present truth flood the internet so that any search on any social media channel can find videos with the truth. So if you have a ministry that wants to help the church, serve people, help them, provide them with some form of knowledge and education and pastoral care, and at the appropriate time, lead them to the church. So reach them where they are, and then welcome them into a church. Again, if the local church that you're leading them to does not have the fullness of the Spirit and the members who are using their spiritual gifts, no method will work. Because evangelism is a spiritual exercise. Mission is not a marketing process. Mission is a spiritual process. It's a miracle. So supporting ministries need to put as much content out as possible to build relationships. I know of some that when they notice there's a lot of search within a given city, the person who is in the video flies to that city and organizes a dinner with the people that they are talking to. And in that dinner, they create relationships. And then they encourage them to find an Adventist church nearby and so on. So it's a brave new world. In the 20th century, we were discovering how to send physical missionaries to the world. In the 21st century, we're now discovering how to send digital missionaries to the world. And we need every supporting ministry to help.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. All right, 3 more questions and then we're done.
This is a youth question. Bjorn Karlman from Adventist Today. So I'm with Alva. I'm a parent. I of a 9-year-old. I also teach teens, and I can just see that they're going to get to the stage soon where they're going to start seriously dating. Especially, obviously the teens. They're getting to that stage. In countries where we don't have the blessing of a lot of Adventists, a lot of people are really concerned about, like, who am I going to date? Who am I going to marry? There's nobody. What is your take? And please resist the temptation to say it's just a terrible idea. But what's your take on flirt to convert? Kind of dating people, and kind of.
I expected to hear that wasn't one of them.
I realize it wasn't.
Please.
But people do it, and sometimes it works. So is it always a bad idea? Do you have examples of Adventists that have dated outside of their faith tradition, and the people have, there's been a happy resolution to that? Maybe, I don't know, maybe they've converted eventually.
So your question essentially is, what is my view on marrying people outside the church?
Dating people outside the church and seeing where it goes, and trying to get them in the church.
So
through the power of love.
Another way of evangelizing, but
with a little romance,
in a unique way. Well, I always tell young people, do evangelism, be involved in mission, but you don't want to use marriage as an avenue for evangelism. Okay. Because in my understanding, when you're dating somebody, you are intending to get engaged in courtship, which will lead to marriage. Now, if you're going to date for the sake of dating and just, have somebody, a girlfriend or boyfriend, but with no intentions to settle, what is the point? And maybe this is a cultural issue. At least where I come from, is that when you are serious about something, about somebody, you are intending to settle down with them one day. But it is, I'm a marriage officer as well, back home in South Africa. And as you know, according to our policy, I can't marry an Adventist with a non-Adventist, but I can marry 2 non-Adventists. So I have always advised people who are non-Adventists and I'm about to marry them, when I counsel them before I marry them, I say to them, listen, if you're a Roman Catholic or an Anglican, there is a potential that you may have challenges because religion can be divisive and religion can bring people together as well. if they believe the same thing. So we are cautious. We cannot dictate and say to people how they must choose, because it's their choice. Remember I said earlier on, young people as they grow up, they formulate their own worldviews. We teach them, we show them the dangers of marrying people of a different faith, but it's their choice. So that's not what we would advocate in the department, to say, go ahead and choose anyone and date anyone. I think it's a dangerous thing, but they have to make their own choice. And there are people who argue, but I so-and-so dated a person who's not an Adventist and they eventually married. What do you say to that? Well, God's grace is amazing and abundant, but we need to be careful. And we know of stories where people are in trouble because of the choices they've made. So you can't make it a standard.
Thanks. Thank you.
Yeah, Andy Roman, Advent Messenger. My question is for you, Pastor Neves. 2 days ago, you informed us here at the press conference that the delegates had on multiple occasions declined to amend or engage in any further discussion regarding, the 215 ADCOM document, bringing that subject to a close. But then just yesterday, during afternoon business session, Vice President Arthur Steele shared a significant development, announcing that the General Conference executive officers will begin a process to re-examine church documents whose proposed amendments were rejected during this session. So my question to you is, as an officer of the General Conference Communication Department, could you please help me understand what happened? And could you also shed some light as to the process, what it looks like, how long does that take, steps involved, committee reviews, and ultimately the new action that could come about?
It's a good question. Let me think how I'm going to answer it. I met with a friend who made an amendment that passed one of these days. And we both celebrated that he brought over, 1,500, 2,000 delegates to think about something and agree on something. When we talk about church structure, when we talk about moving a very large body of people, 23 million, in a democratic process, it's very difficult not to have this, especially for some personalities, to have the idea that you are going to move the church in a particular direction. And you're going to use the process, and you're going to do this, and you're going to do that, because you will be heard. On the other hand, you have the opportunity for administration to be completely oblivious and say, no, we will use the machinery and we will not entertain this, and we will block, and we will try to, in a healthy church, what happens is that we listen to each other. We pay attention to each other. And many delegates brought the item back again and again, and the body decided we do not want to add this to the agenda in 2025 in St. Louis. And I'm not privy to the conversations that happened among the officers, but I presume that they looked at this and said, let's have a look at this. People have concerns. Let's talk about it. Let's analyze it. Let's see what we can do. Let's listen properly. And I presume that's what happened. That's what it looks like to me. And I see this as a very healthy process. What we have to avoid is the natural gloating that is very human on, see, because we said this, and because we did this, and because we did that, and because we did this video that, and we moved the machinery of the church. That's not from the Holy Spirit. If people want to see the church go in a given direction, I want to encourage them to wake up before dawn and win those battles in the unseen realm. This is a church, it's not a corporation. Although it is also a corporation because we need to put the assets in a legal place. Yes, but this is a church. and the Holy Spirit is the head of the church. So we pray that our leaders will be under the full influence of the Holy Spirit, revisiting things, talking about things, and leading us forward so that we can all focus on mission properly. Sometimes you do need to have some serious conversations in your family, right?
How does that process, how does it look like? I mean, is that going to maybe appear in the next session or between sessions, AdCom?
I'm sure we're going to find out together.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know. Thank you.
Pedro Sauter from Global's Newsroom, and also a pastor in the Chesapeake Conference. I decided to come here and ask a question because my passion in ministry is in youth. I love technology and media. Actually, I'm producing part of this work. And mental
Who's
health.
cutting now, Pedro? You got
It's,
somebody else there?
Elton. Yes.
Okay,
Elton's there.
excellent.
And you'll get your son working right there. Well, he was.
Start them young.
But I heard you saying giving purpose through gifts, tasks, and materials through the website, and I appreciate that. Those are great resources. However, I don't feel that is relationable to our youth and our church, working with many of them. And I learned that those things comes through mentorship. Actually, I was brought to the church when I was young, and many men and women were mentors through my life and brought me to become, at this point, a pastor. And they care for me. Now, my question to you is, how can we help our local members to listen, to build purpose in relationships within our church youth, and also with the youth of the world today as we minister them in 2025?
So your question is, how do we help our young people to connect with the youth of the world?
How can we help our members to
Our
be
members.
involved in listening and communicating, right? Mentorship, building purpose, right? Through gift basis, giving purpose to them. And our church youth, we can do through the church ministries, but also the youth of the world, because they're struggling definitely with mental health. They're also in the media. Most of them are connected to thousands of phones and medias, and they are seeking for purpose.
Yeah, we promote the concept of intergenerational connection. Many young people are frustrated because they say that in the local church they don't get the support. There is that divide, there is polarization between them and the old people. And then at the same time, those who are older are saying that some of the young people they are trying to embrace, they are not willing. And so we are promoting that generations must work, different generations must work together to bring that connection and synergy. Media is our reality today. We live in a digital space, and we believe that media needs to be used as a tool to evangelize people who do not know anything about Jesus and the second coming of Jesus, as well as to be able to reach those who may not be reached otherwise. And so we believe that those are the components that are important: mentorship through intergenerational partnership, as well as utilizing the gifts that the young people have, the millennials, the Gen Zs, and all that. Let's listen to them and let's bring their expertise into the church, because they are there. It's very often as old people we say, no, but we are used to this way of doing things, but this is the time for us to embrace different ways of doing things. And by inviting these young people, to help us with technology. We live in a digital space, as I said. As they say, we are in the industrial revolution era. And so we need to invite them around the table, talk to them, work together. That brings that, intergenerational aspect of things. And that way we'll be able to reach people out there. We encourage our young people to use social media and all these other things. Old people need to be able to know how to, be involved with youth who are used to technology as well. So, yeah, basically that's what I would say to your question.
Thank you very much.
One more.
and,
Last one.
This
Let's
is going to be more of a
make this
comment
quick.
to wrap up everything from today. I've been doing a lot of research on relational marketing, inbound marketing, and there's a role that we as journalists and communicators have, because there's an awareness phase. And so we are in a giant awareness phase here at General Conference session. And then there's consideration. What about you and me? What about us together? And then we're enlightened in that process. And so we, as journalists, are then able to take that enlightenment that we've learned here back to our members, to our constituents. And then that's where the marketing term conversion comes in, where you have that response. What am I going to do with this information? I learned about so many resources for Sabbath School and personal ministries here that I never knew about before. And now I've learned about youth ministries, and I can take that back to my constituents. Because at that point in time, we've built that relationship with our here and with our constituents. So then that way, there's a sense of belonging and a sense of loyalty and advocacy that comes out of that. There's so many opportunities for us here. This has been a master class in leadership at these news conferences. I'm just so grateful, and that's how I would like to end this evening.
What a wonderful way to end. Thank you so much, Heidi. And thank you for coming here and asking those questions. Thank you, Pastor Busi, for being here and answering them so bravely.
Thank you, Pastor Sam, for having me, and thank you, journalists and media. We need the paparazzi to popularize what we have, and we want to appreciate that.
Thank you.
So
And thank you for watching from home. We'll see you tomorrow at another press conference. One of the people that we will have is the newly elected communication leader, Alyssa Truman, will be here, and you can bring all your questions about communication to her. We'll see you tomorrow.